them your words, make them hear. Have you been
Let's turn the
heard?
mics on.
Do they listen?
And just a little, keep it up in the background a
Do
little bit.
they really?
All right, and you're listening to an album called Hoka. It was nominated for a Native American Music Award. Yay! We have a special guest in the Air Studio today. I want to welcome Jon Swan. I want to introduce you to Rick Hunt and Carole in Black Hunt.
Hi.
And I'm Deb. And we invited Jon, who is the founder of North Country Alliance for Balanced Change. No?
I'm the founder of Save Forest Lake.
Save Forest Lake, okay. And that's another organization, the Alliance, that works with you.
Those are my neighbors, basically.
Oh,
North Country
great.
Alliance for Balanced Change,
And-
or NCABC.
And you know, our topic today is about a company that would you call them a? My mind is like a sieve right now. I just want to call them like the owners of the dump site. They are a waste management company. They're from out of state, but they take care of the waste and landfills here in New Hampshire and in other places in New England. There has been a threat of a site that was going to be right next to a lake in a state park here in New Hampshire. The state legislators have been working on a lot of legislation having to do with landfills, and we are going to be asking Jon about that. What an interesting thing I learned, and then I'll give the mic over to Jon, is that these permits for operating a landfill just happen on a state level. And so the individual towns don't have much say about what happens. So I find it really interesting as we delve into what the state legislators are actually doing to help us out to keep the beauty and protect the water and the environment here in New Hampshire, and how we all need to be like working together to, find a way through. And Rick, did you have anything to say as we start?
Having been born here, Forest Lake has been like an important part of my life, even as a child, going there for swimming lessons every single morning in the summer, and it's I don't know. It used to be. I haven't been there for a long time, but it used to be very. The water was clean. People came and took care of trash when they were there and stuff. But I haven't been there for a long time.
It's still very clean, and we certainly do pick up any trash that people may leave behind, but it is a carry-in, carry-out park, and so people are pretty responsible. They do a pretty good job of helping us to keep it clean, because again, it's a free park, Free State Park Beach, clean lake, beautiful lake, and it's a New Hampshire treasure that I think a lot of people have grown to appreciate even more because of the threat posed to it. And I would like to, first of all, Deb, thanks for having me on today, and I want to preface my comments and my presence being here today by stating that everything I say on this show is my opinion. It's based on my research and my experience, and I say that in order to not be sued a third time by this company that you're talking about, Casella Waste Systems of Rutland, Vermont, who, and I'm sure people in Bethlehem who have dealt with this company for over 30 years now can probably attest to as well. It's not a very good company. I, in fact, consider them to be a very bad company, a predatory company, a corporate profiteer, and overall a very bad community partner. So when they came to Dalton in 2019, when I first learned of this, upon doing some research, because I'm a former history teacher, and I a student of history all my life, so I believe you can learn a lot from the lessons of history. And I quickly looked at Bethlehem and to see how this company was performing in Bethlehem. And basically, I was able to quickly come to the conclusion that we just didn't want this company in Dalton, just 6 miles away, basically despoiling a beautiful spot. I mean, when I first heard of this in March 2019, I thought, surely this was a joke. Who would want to site out garbage landfill next to a beautiful lake and beloved state park? So,
I think that often when they cite nuclear power plants next to a river, right? That it is a threat with out-of-state garbage maybe arriving at the landfill. Can you speak to how that happens? Is
Sure.
it because the company is based out of state and they make contracts with other?
sure.
Yeah.
Well, in New Hampshire, there's numerous landfills. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's 6, but there's 3 that are what's considered unlimited service area landfills, which means they can accept waste from anywhere. Down south in Rochester, there's the Waste Management owned and operated turnkey landfill. And then up in Success, which is outside of Berlin, there's the AVARD, AVRRDD, owned. It's a 10-town municipal owned landfill. Also unlimited service area, but these are towns that came together to buy the old paper mill landfill, and they basically use it for their waste generation up there in that neck of the woods. And then now primarily most of the North Country sends its waste to the Mount Carberry landfill. So that's the irony of Casella with the Bethlehem facility to close by 2026 unless they seek further expansion, which I believe they will now since they've faced pretty much utter defeat in Dalton with their plans over the past 7 years for a new landfill. I think we're going to see another expansion attempt in Bethlehem, despite past agreements and promises they wouldn't. However, the Bethlehem facility is formed in, I'm actually writing a book about the history of this facility because I feel that this story in Bethlehem is an important one that needs to be told because it was learning that story and that history was so helpful in our fight to stop this company and this landfill project next to Forest Lake. But I feel those people, their cries, their pleas for help fell on deaf ears in Concord and around, in the North Country with their fellow neighboring towns, basically throwing them under the trash truck in order to have a place to send its waste. So things have changed, and we've come to realize that New Hampshire is a place. It's a beautiful place where people come to vacate, to vacation, to recreate. We're known for our natural resources, our waters, our forests, our mountains. We're not meant to be the dumping ground for New England. It's because of lax regulations, and that's why you continue to see like St. Gobain relocating to the Merrimack area from Vermont because Vermont had more strict regulations, so they came to New Hampshire. And then we all know the story of St. Gobain and Merrimack and the PFAS contamination of surrounding water wells, water supplies, whatnot. So that's a cautionary tale that we need to pay attention to and not ignore. And I think that's why we saw the outpour of support and really indignation for Casella's attempt to site a new landfill next to Forest Lake State Park,
Right.
and pristine Forest Lake, which is one of the cleanest, if not the cleanest, lake in New Hampshire. In fact, we've tested it for PFAS contamination as well as surrounding private wells. We have no PFAS contamination.
Wow.
Wow.
So, and that was
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah.
great expense and effort. And then on the flip side, I've actually gone into the Ammonoosuc River from across the NCCR property, waded across, and there's actually several seeps, but the main seep, which is it's like a little waterfall cascading from the NCCR property into the Ammonoosuc River. I've tested that water 4 times now, for PFAS contamination. And I found the same 5 to 4 PFAS compounds every time since October 23 through June of this year. I've tested the same compounds, basically the same amount of, same levels of detection, and yet the state and EPA don't seem to have an interest in really addressing that.
Just for our listeners, I have just a couple paragraphs that, because John's been saying PFAS, and it's like, well, what are PFAS? What is that? And Rick, can you see this? It's just like a little paragraph, just because I feel like we want to share the information. We want people to know what we're talking about. Right here, start here,
Okay.
and read the second paragraph too, which is entitled "The Forever Chemicals."
Okay. What are PFAS? PFAS. In 1946, DuPont introduced non-stick cookware coated with Teflon. Today, the family of fluorinated chemicals that spring from Teflon includes thousands of non-stick stain repellent and waterproof compounds called PFAS, short for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. The forever chemicals in 99% of Americans. Hundreds of everyday products are made with highly toxic fluorinated chemicals called PFAS. They build up in our bodies and never break down in the environment. Very small doses of PFAS have been linked to cancer, reproductive and immune system harm, and other diseases. For decades, chemical companies covered up evidence of PFAS health hazards. Today, nearly all Americans, including newborn babies, have PFAS in their blood, and more than 200 million people may be drinking PFAS-tainted water. What began as a miracle of modern chemistry is now a national crisis.
And there you have it.
It's crazy, isn't it? You look back, and if you've
Yeah.
ever watched The Graduate, remember Dustin Hoffman's character was advised to, get involved with plastics. That was the future.
Oh,
And now
wow.
it's plastics plague us. They plague our oceans, our
Yeah.
waste stream. And, in my household, I guess, there's several silver linings to getting involved in a landfill fight, but we've certainly altered our practices as consumers in my household, and we compost. We really seek to avoid generating waste, and in fact, my car is full today to go to the transfer station, primarily with just cardboard, paper products for recycling, glass, and then of course aluminum and steel cans. So I only take my trash bag maybe once every 2 months, because I really quite literally don't buy much products that would go into the trash can anymore. And we of course have several compost piles at our house now.
Are you noticing that maybe any federal regulations might be coming more lenient towards the corporation itself? And I know in the nuclear regulatory process, which every nuclear power plant is a nuclear waste dump site, and that is another forever man-made, I'll call it a chemical, but it's a man-made waste that lays radioactive for 250,000 years. And we have that in New Hampshire. Has there ever been any intersection with your work on landfills? And, because I know when they were cleaning up, like right now, they're cleaning up Vermont Yankee. And what's left are the huge canisters holding the plutonium there at that dump site. But what is being shipped out to landfills is this what they call low-level radioactive waste, that down to Texas to, in communities, and it's called racist environmentalism now, because it goes to poor communities that don't have the resources to fight back. Do you ever see that intersection at landfill work?
Only in my now going on 7 years of experience and research, I will say that the only time I've really come across any kind of radioactive waste is relative to fracking, and you hear a lot about that fracking waste going to landfills in New York State primarily, Pennsylvania as well because of the fracking industry, and again that's something where this company Casella Waste Systems has several landfills that they own or operate in New York State, as well as one in Pennsylvania, and they have been mired in controversy as well because of they really like to if you pay attention to the particulars, there's different determinations whatnot in terms of what they consider radioactive waste, et cetera, et cetera. So they really like to play that game, that wordsmanship, and so we've seen that in New York State with organizations like the Sierra Club, who have taken Casella and other companies to court due to the acceptance of radioactive fracking waste at those landfills. But that's not really I haven't really come across it here in New Hampshire, which has been my primary focus.
You may see it in the future. I mean, Seabrook's already 40 years old, and a lot of that waste just goes right.
Right. I think now the next big problem you're going to see is what to do with all the landfill leachate that's generated, because as you mentioned with Rick's reading, PFAS are in a lot of the waste that's generated by society, and of course that goes into landfills, and then landfills generate liquid waste, which is called leachate, which is very high in PFAS compounds, and that's what we're seeing right now at the NCS landfill in the surrounding watershed. The landfill itself is sited entirely within the watershed of the Ammonoosuc River, and the groundwater flows northeast to the Ammonoosuc River, and that's again where my testing is taking place. And the groundwater reports that are submitted to DES, I have a lot of details about this on my website, safeforestlake.com, but
safeforestlake.com.
Since 2018, when DES started to require, or the Department of Environmental Services in New Hampshire started to require testing at these groundwater monitoring wells for PFAS contaminants, the NCS landfill has had a lot of problems with high levels of PFAS contamination at the various monitoring wells outside of what they call state-of-the-art double-lined landfill, and that's not supposed to be happening at state-of-the-art double-lined landfill. So I am of the firm belief, based on my opinion, my research, and my experience, that the original Stage 1 liner system is compromised, whether it's because of the stress that's been placed on the liner system over the years of adding expansion after expansion over top of that, coupled with the original company, Consummate Senko, which built the Stage 1 liner system. Again, if you're using low-skilled workers to install those liners and they're not paying attention, they're doing the seams in cold weather, there's a lot of room for flaws in construction, defects, etc. And then of course, once you develop a leak and you've already built over top of it, how do you address it? So I feel that's what's going on. You've got some, in my opinion, low-level leakage at the NCS landfill, which is resulting in ongoing detections of PFAS contaminants and other telltale analytes that you would find in landfill leachate showing up at these groundwater monitoring wells. So that's why I feel that my concern now that we've stopped Casella at Forest Lake with the April 2025 denial of the solid waste permit application by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, I feel Casella is going to go back to Bethlehem, poor little Bethlehem, for another expansion effort of that landfill, so that they have a place to bring waste from their trash routes in Massachusetts and Connecticut
Mhm.
primarily
Mhm.
into New Hampshire.
I know you've been following what happened at the state legislation season, and there was a couple of bills, I guess, that were going through. One was a moratorium on any new landfills in New Hampshire. You know, what ended up happening with that? Where did that go?
Well, one thing we've seen, because again, our approach to stopping Casella at Forest Lake in Dalton and in Bethlehem, because the actual entrance to the proposed landfill site in Dalton actually lies in Bethlehem, which, again, I'm getting into the weeds here, is a violation, in my opinion, of the 2011-2012 legal agreement in which Casella and the town of Bethlehem entered into, and Casella would not expand or seek permits for property outside of District 5, which is the Trudeau Road landfill. So by trying to get permits, including the DOT permit for Douglas Drive, that was one issue we raised, that they were violating that 2011-2012 legal agreement with Bethlehem. But I digress. So really again, what was your question? I get lost sometimes.
Where did that bill end up with
Yes,
the
the
moratorium on no new
For the past
landfills?
6 years, as part of our multi-pronged attack to stop this project, we've gone to Concord and sought legislation to strengthen New Hampshire's statutes
Yes.
and rules,
Yeah.
regulations regarding solid waste matters. And we've had great success in the House, because I feel that the House of Representatives, the People's House, have recognized that we are just normal citizens who have, laymen who have become, because of our fight, we've had to learn about the ways of solid waste matters, and we found these flaws, these defects that in the permitting process, and we've tried to address them. Like, for example, the setback for a landfill next to a body of water was only 200 feet
Yes.
when this only
Yes.
started. Now it's because of they've again strengthened the regulations. It's only 500 feet, which is of course ridiculous. We've sought upwards to 2 miles,
Yeah.
especially relative to siting next to state parks, which are at the heart of our tourism industry. We've had great success in the House. However, the New Hampshire State Senate, there are some very powerful state senators who seem aligned with Casella, and they seem to carry the water for Casella, in my opinion, and have been instrumental in killing efforts by the House to strengthen laws and regulations. In fact, several years ago, we had House Bill 1454, which would have killed the Dalton project. Governor Sununu actually vetoed that. We actually passed it through in the Senate miraculously with the help of then Senator Aaron Hennessy from the North Country. However, before the veto override day, she left the Senate to take a position within the Secretary of State's office. So we did not have our cat wrangler in the Senate, and we wound up losing on override day by I can't remember. I think it was 5 votes in the Senate.
Wow.
So
Yeah. One of the things that I see similar in the nuclear industry is, you have this waste being generated at each nuclear power plant, and the companies themselves, even though the regulations are in black and white, there they are, they keep changing it. And in Plymouth, Massachusetts right now, the company came up with this idea how to get rid of their tritiated water. Well, they would just boil it, and release it in the air without any permits to, do that. They've been irradiating and creating this air pollution, so so many of these industries now, that are corporate entities,
very powerful.
they're
Corporate
very powerful.
entities, yes.
And they're creating their own laws as they go along and changing. So it's really hard to protect ourselves.
Well, and I think we've seen that here at New Hampshire as a case study for that, because if you
Yes.
look at the history of the Bethlehem landfill and the growth of that
Yeah.
facility, who has opposed that? It's the citizens of Bethlehem and their town government. And who makes up the town government? It's a select board made up of citizens who are not experts,
Right.
and they have there's a long learning curve when you
Yes.
take office and
Yeah.
learn, the ins and outs of, governing your town body. So,
Mhm.
and then of course there's the expense of going to court, and Bethlehem of course has spent millions of dollars fighting Casella, and they've gotten to a point now where they have Casella boxed in terms of where they can go. They can't go upward anymore at NCS. They're going to have to go outward. And again, they in the 2011-2012 legal agreement, they agreed not to seek land outside of District
Yes.
5.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
I think we're going to see in 2026 is another town warrant article seeking to utilize that property which Casella bought in 2015 when they said they
yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, right now my focus has been with the town of Bethlehem and letting those citizens know they're not alone this time, that the North Country is with them, that it's time to say
Yeah.
goodbye to Casella,
Yeah.
goodbye to the NCS facility. We don't need them. Most of the North Country towns now send their waste to the Avard facility. And we need to work together to reduce the waste that we
Absolutely.
generate.
Yeah.
Food composting.
Mhm.
Food waste makes up 25 to 30% of the waste stream. So, if we look at it here in the North Country, if you had some young entrepreneurs out there with a truck who just wanted to start a food waste collection business, and they had a little bit of land, the business model is there.
Yes.
There's in Maine and Vermont.
In
There's
Vermont.
companies.
It happens.
They could start their own business charging
Mhm.
restaurants for food waste collection, and then turn
Mhm.
around and charge consumers for compost that they
Mhm.
generate on
Yeah.
their property. So
And not just that, it's the generation of energy with the methane. I mean, we're not even tapping into that at all.
right.
So what I'm feeling when I start to investigate a little bit and try to educate myself on some of this is this overlap with some of these other issues, like another ally would be the anti-nuclear movement, the waste and the like we need to come together and understand that we're all here to try to protect the water and the land. And why I invited you here is because we do this show called Moccasin Tracks, and in a very indigenous perspective is the responsibility that we all have for our future generations. So I'm going to say this because you are an ally working to protect the land, protect the water for the future generations. And maybe you don't say it in that way, but we say it in that way. And I played, before you came on the hour previous, I played some audio from interviews we did with grandmothers who walk with the water in a sacred way, because they believe that they have the responsibility, and that water has memory and remembers how to be pure. So grandmother Carole and Bubar Blodgett walked the Connecticut River gathering source water here in New Hampshire, walked right by here all the way down to carrying the water. At each place where there was a nuclear power plant or septic, water, anything dealing,
Wastewater treatment plant.
she did ceremony. She said prayer. She invited people to join her. And this is happening across Indian country everywhere. This acknowledgement of our human connection to water. We are 75% water. We need water. We need each other to come together in these struggles. And so, I invited you here because I want to learn about what's going on right here, and I crossed the Connecticut River to get to this radio station. We acknowledge that this is ancestral territory. We do a land acknowledgement every show to acknowledge that the ancestors were here. Now we know because of archaeology and the science for 12,000 years. So, we have a responsibility. We can't just use this all up in our lifetime.
Right, we do. And there's no, I like to say there's no planet B. We don't have a
Exactly.
planet B.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah.
we've been fighting this fight now because we realize that, this threat that was presented to us, this threat that came to us, we recognize that, this is a threat to the future generations.
Absolutely.
And as I told my wife when we started this 7 years ago, if not I, who? And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt compelled to get involved, and of course, in April of 2020, I was sued by Casella Waste Systems for defamation, and since then, I'm in my second lawsuit with Casella Waste Systems. My legal fees have, surpassed $250,000,
Oh my goodness.
and this is something we're going to have a jury trial hopefully in September so that we can get this over with. But out of this, going on 7-year landfill fight now, 5+ of those years I've been engaged in legal entanglement with Casella Waste Systems, and that's not by accident. They wanted to silence my voice and my activism, and again, I told my wife, we're doing this for future generations because I don't want to look back and someone say to me, why didn't someone try to stop this?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
who loves life in New Hampshire, and even if you don't live in New Hampshire but you come here to for outdoor recreation, for tourism, to just get away from it all and enjoy the beautiful majesty of the state, that
Mm-hmm.
you should join our fight, whether it's through Save Forest Lake or our friends at North Country Alliance for Balanced Change, because my neighbors there at NCABC have enjoined the lawsuit Casella Waste Systems has filed against the state of New Hampshire. Think about that. New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services told Casella in April of this year that they did not, they were not able to approve their solid waste permit application because they failed to prove that this was an appropriate site for a landfill. So how does a waste company from out of state sue the Department of Environmental Services in the state of New Hampshire to somehow try and write that so that they can build a landfill in a site that they have not proven to be suitable for a landfill? The ridiculousness of that proposition. But our friends at NCABC have enjoined that, as well as the appeal before the Waste Management Council, and that's going to cost them a lot of money. So please, I would encourage your listeners to either reach out to me through SaveForestLake.com or my neighbors at North Country Alliance Alliance for Balanced Change at NCABC on Facebook, or NorthCountryABC.net on the web.
Excellent. Yeah. And I just want to say again that I hope that more alliances can happen, because I think we all need to educate ourselves and educate each other and work together, for the common good.
We're all in this together.
Right,
We're
exactly.
all in this together.
So, whether you're, whatever direction you're looking at it from, it's all important work.
And that's, it's funny, that's what I've been telling everybody on both sides of the aisle in Concord when I run across them in the halls of the State House. This fight has no political ideology behind it. There's no political boundary. This is about clean water,
Right.
Clean air, clean soil. I haven't even talked about biosolids and the application of sludge on farmlands in New Hampshire.
Right. Same
And
in
this
Vermont.
is still
yeah.
allowed. And again,
Yeah.
there's PFAS contaminants in that soil, which then gets into whether it's the cow's milk, the grain, the fruits, and again gets into the bloodstream of mankind. And
Yes.
again, I would if for those of you who are new to the world of PFAS and PFAS contaminants, I would encourage you to watch There's a new movie out a couple years ago. Mark Ruffalo was in it. It's called Dark Waters.
Okay.
There's also another movie. It's a little older. It's called The Devil We Know, and it's about DuPont and Teflon and PFAS. And then Rob Bilott, Billotte, is the attorney who took on DuPont. He's the man portrayed by Mark Ruffalo in the story Dark Waters, but he wrote an excellent book about it, and you can find all kinds of articles about his efforts with DuPont. And sometimes I kind of feel like a little bit of channeling a little Rob Bilott and a little Aaron Brockovich in my own fight against Casella, because again, this is happening right here in our own backyard, and DES just seems to be turning a blind eye to it, and EPA won't touch it. So it's maddening to think that as we're talking right now, PFAS contaminated surface water is discharging into the Ammonoosuc River in Bethlehem. So crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Radioactive fish have been found 16 miles upstream from, Brattleboro area where the nuke is. So it's like we're all facing it in some way. In your community, it could be PFAS, or if you're down near the nuke, it could be radioactive treated water. If you're over in Plymouth, Massachusetts, it could be in the air, and I just, it saddens me, that this is happening, that they're allowed to make a profit over
people.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah. We're going to continue our conversation, and we're going to dive deep into some stories about the uranium mining in Navajo country. And but I want to just give you, in closing, again, Jon Swan has been visiting here. He started the SaveForestLake.com is your website.
Yes, ma'am.
And has recommended movies to educate ourselves, and has joined with also the North Country Alliance for Balanced Change. Both can be found on Facebook, and again, go to the website. For the immediate future, is there any recommendations that can be made that we can follow up on? And closing comments.
Honestly, it just seems like it's kind of like whack-a-mole. Right now, I haven't even talked about the fact that in the Berlin, New Hampshire area, there's a closed landfill called the Dummer Yard Landfill, and there's an effort underway right now to reopen that as a home for contaminated soil, primarily from Massachusetts. And we do have a website dedicated on, or a site on Facebook relative to Dummer Yard, but the folks up in the Berlin, New Hampshire area are, again, like we fought in Dalton, like our citizens, our neighbors in Bethlehem, they're facing a new fight up there relative to the reopening of Dummer Yard. And what's maddening about that is actually a project. I believe it's a profit-driven project that was concocted by former New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Assistant Commissioner Mark Sanborn, a Sununu appointee, concocted right before he left to get into private industry. And now I think your listeners' heads will probably explode when they learn that he is the new EPA administrator for New England. So his name's Mark Sanborn. Check him out. In my opinion, again, I believe he is a very bad actor, and he is heading up EPA New England and is behind the effort to reopen the Dummer Yard landfill, which would be home for contaminated soils from Massachusetts brought into New Hampshire. So again, why is New Hampshire the dumping ground for out-of-state waste? And I would just encourage your listeners to maybe reach out, and also to reach out to their elected officials on the local and state level and urge them to start paying attention to what's going on, because there is no planet B. We only have one environment, and our health is directly
absolutely.
tied to it. But
Absolutely.
thank you so much for having me on. Really.
Rick,
Thank you.
you have closing comments? I just wanted to ask you if you have anything more to say.
I just want to thank John for coming in. It's an honor to have you here. I like what you're doing, and please keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, and come back and visit with us again. We, like to be updated on everything, of course, and we'll follow you on Facebook and everything.
I'll reach out to you before the Bethlehem Town meetings so people
Okay.
can help out.
Okay. Excellent. Carolyn, you got a song for us?